Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A Cafe. And I'm Carol Joynt. And let me just start by first thanking our sponsors, Georgetown Cupcake and Linens of the Week, the Friends of Nathan's, the FN, LFN, or the Loyal Friends of Nathan's, the new terrorist group, and Prairie Capital, and Amano, and Rachel Pearson Associates, and welcome, Ted Leonsis. It's great to have you here.
I was escorted out of Nathan's in 1978, so it's good to be welcomed back.
I didn't know it then. Do you want to tell us what the circumstances were? No. You were having a good time.
I was creative with my age ID.
Oh, really? I was wondering if maybe you were with John Riggins, because he usually spawned the kind of behavior here that got many people. John, we love you, though, wherever you are, if you're listening.
Nathan's back. I was a student at Georgetown University. Nathan's was the capstone of the city on the hill.
Yeah.
It was when if you took your date to Nathan's, it meant you really liked her.
Oh, you really liked her, yeah. Did you think the prices were really high?
They were really high.
Yeah. Well, we aren't. Our prices aren't so high anymore. We're part of the real world now. You went to Georgetown. Are you a local boy?
No, I grew up in New York, and neither my mom or dad went to college. I had never heard of
Your
Georgetown.
ancestry is Greek, right?
I'm Greek.
Are you first generation?
I am. I'm first generation. And I mowed the lawn of a gentleman who went to Georgetown. And one day when I was mowing the lawn, he came outside and he had on a Georgetown sweatshirt. And we started talking about the schools, and so I applied. I never would have gotten in today, and I still remember, very honestly, driving with my father to see the school, and coming down, it was a beautiful day, and just driving up M Street.
Yeah.
And Four Seasons, I don't think was there.
No, it was a gas station.
Yeah, but it just felt like home.
Yeah,
so
it's nice.
Yeah.
And you knew it was where you wanted to go to school?
Yep. And,
was it the only school you applied to?
I got into Georgetown and Reed College. I don't know why I applied there.
Another neighbor.
And my mother saw that Reed had the highest rate of suicide attempts of college students.
Even back then.
So Georgetown and Nathan seemed a little more welcoming.
And did you know at that time what you were coming to Georgetown to study?
I didn't. I was an undergraduate student, and Georgetown back then is very different than it is now.
Everything is.
But there was always the Jesuit presence,
Right.
and the Jesuits.
Was that important to you?
Well, I'm not Catholic, and they kind of scared me at first.
Right.
But I got a mentor, Father Durkin, who was 75 at the time. He just died at 100 years old, and we remained close ever since. And his whole teaching style, what the Jesuits were about, was connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And so interdisciplinary studies was what they preached. And I honestly think that from my business career, that's really the only skill that I've ever taken.
Called upon.
Yeah, now they call it mashups. Being able to take a little from here and a little from there and shake it up and create something that looks new and innovative, but it's really that Jesuit training.
Wasn't AOL essentially a mashup?
It was mashed up. I've heard it called worse.
But you were there at the beginning.
So is Jack Davies, actually. Yeah. Jack Davies, would you raise your hand? Jack Davies was actually at AOL even before me.
Before you. Well, when did you get involved in AOL, and what stage was AOL at when you got involved, and what were you doing that led you there?
Well, AOL was a small company. Founded by a gentleman in Virginia who's since passed away.
What was his name?
Bill von Meister.
Okay.
And the original...
A name that has not gone down in history.
Yep. The original company was created to make people that played Atari video games be interactive. And they built a network that would scale for 1,000 people to be playing
sort of
a
like
multi-user
Madden?
game. Well, whatever it was back then, Pong or whatever.
But you could play it with other people in their own locations.
And it was financed by a bunch of venture capitalists. One of the venture capitalists was Jim Kimsey's roommate, and he asked Jim Kimsey to get involved. And another venture capitalist was a really lovely guy who I got to know named Dan Case. Dan has since passed away. And if you can believe it, Dan was called uppercase and Steve was called lowercase.
Oh, man, okay.
And Dan put Steve into the company. And they just had this idea that something magical would happen when you put people in front of computers and let them communicate.
Okay.
And the company did very well. They started to bring new executives in.
This is 1980 something,
No,
right?
this was 1992, 1993.
Really? Okay.
And I think the company went public in 1992. And it took a long time to get to 1 million customers. I think it took the company about 12 years to get to 1 million customers. And then it just kind of hit. And then we added 1 million customers a year, then 3 million customers a year.
But how did you walk in the door?
I had started a company called Redgate Communications. Redgate was named for my college roommate's second home or third home farm. It was called Redgate Farms, and I remember him taking me there, and it was like this mile drive, and they had this big red gate. It was called Redgate Farms, and I said, one day I'll have a house like this. And so I started a company called Redgate, and Dan Case.
And a company that did what?
We were New Media before New Media
Had
was.
that name.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And
okay.
so.
You were entrepreneurial.
So I met Steve, and we had breakfast, and the guy poured coffee, and Steve Case said, I know a lot about your company, and I think we should merge. And I remember saying, can we kiss first?
And so you folded your company into AOL.
Yep.
And other companies were getting folded. That's why I say
we were the
AOL
first
was
acquisition.
was a mashup because
Yep.
other companies
We were the
got...
first acquisition. I'm proud to say then they took Jack and asked Jack if he would start AOL International, and I ran AOL domestically pretty much, and Steve became chairman, and it did pretty good for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you got out when?
Well, I'm still kind of in.
Well,
I'm now vice chairman emeritus.
Emeritus,
For those of you
yes.
who don't know, emeritus is Latin for be nice to us, don't compete, and we'll pay you a little bit of money.
don't meddle, chiefly, right?
Yeah.
But your active role ended what? About
I stepped back in actively. I kind of stepped down the first time in 1999, 2000 when the merger was happening.
with Time Warner.
I had no interest in moving to New York or The Sopranos or magazines. And then in 2002, I came back in, and I was very active, and then I stepped down December of '06.
What did you think of the merger? Were you supportive of it, or did you think it was a bad
Well,
idea?
now it's very trendy to say it wasn't a great idea. It actually was a great idea. And it does go to show that while strategy is important, execution is more important. It was a spectacular idea. It was. It really foreshadowed what we're seeing today, which is all content, all services are made into X's and O's and digitized and delivered over lots of pipes. I think, when history shows what happened is that we were a very centralized company. We had a management team that just focused on one brand, essentially, AOL, with one stock. And Time Warner, as great of a company as it is, there's only about 400 employees that work for Time Warner.